So I should definitely correct myself at this point, because for the longest time I had remembered Raigeki being in this deck, in this structure deck, but apparently the spell card I was thinking of was Heavy Storm. I feel like I've gotten Mandala because I have no idea where I got the Raigeki that I was holding on to for the longest time. And I could have sworn it was from this deck. But in any case, here we are. We are reviewing... See, in case you don't know, hello, my name is Controlled Chaos. I'm a variety streamer who focuses on reactions and Let's Plays. And I also have a plethora of hobbies, Yu-Gi-Oh! Included. And with the introduction of Genesys, it's got me thinking, have the structured decks over the years been Genesys friendly? So far, let's see, so far, the results have been mixed. The general has been a yes, but almost half the decks have been a no. And those that have been safe to use for Genesys have ranged from either lackluster to moderate. This might change with Lord of the Storm, so we'll just have to see. And as this is possibly a hot take, or a bunch of hot takes, we have avocado toast with ghost pepper jam. Ghost pepper strawberry jam, to be precise. I might see if I can't find something to change it up, but this is still pretty good, so here we go. Let's start with the boss monster. I don't recall having that much difficulty with it, except for the fact that it cannot be special summoned. It has to be tribute summoned, and all tributes must be wind attribute. So that sort of locks it down, but it's pretty not bad. Each player takes 1,000 damage during each of their end phases while this card remains face up on the field. This damage is decreased by 500 for each spell or trap card the player controls. So this should give, this sort of gives an idea on how the deck is played. The deck itself is basically focused on making sure that you have more spells or traps on the field than your opponent. And it has several ways of doing so. Sonic Shooter. Let's see. Okay. If there are no cards in your opponent's spell and trap card zone, this card can attack your opponent directly. When it does, any battle damage this card inflicts to your opponent's life points becomes the original attack of this card. So, a balanced card, and it's excellent for the strategy that this deck puts out, being you would want to clear your opponent's field of spells and traps. And I believe there are a few options that would boost this monster's attack, but that becomes irrelevant when it attacks directly, so it would be more for defensive purposes. So, a decent card, I believe. Shooter. Although, the strategy this deck puts out is dated, so take all this with a grain of salt. Alright, Sonic Duck, a normal monster, as I recall it. Yep, 1700 attack, 700 defense, below average attack at the time, and it is a level 3 monster, so it can be forgiven for having just under 1800 attack. So I don't know, someone could come along, pick up Sonic Duck, and make crazy stuff with it. So yes, we've got Sonic Duck. And personally, for the longest time, I assumed that everything that was on this duck was just something that he wore. Like, I thought this was a scarf, and he just wears a bucket for a head, but no. No, Sonic Duck just goes so fast, he has no control over where he's heading. So, likely he ran into someone carrying water from a well, as well as a clothesline with someone's knickers on it. Yeah, I can actually see his neck now. The follies of youth. Anyways, Harpy Girl. I'm a little afraid to open this one. Let's see if it shows the regular art. Yes, it does. Okay. And this is the version. Wait, is that? At least yeah. Like, this artwork is the version given for the structure deck. I am honestly uncertain as to why they would add Harpy Girl to the deck. Or, like, what purpose this would serve outside of being a Harpy monster. A level 2 winged beast with 500 attack and defense. But time would probably tell for me for it. So, yeah. Harpy Girl. Possibly another target for Elegant Egotist, maybe? I don't know. Slate Warrior. Let's see, so Slate Warrior. This one I enjoyed using, and it was pretty effective for its time. Let's see. So, its flip effect is this card gains 500 attack and defense. If this card is destroyed by a battle, the monster that destroyed it loses 500 attack and defense. Unfortunately, last I checked, the flip effect triggers after the battle. Let me double check this. The damage step, after damage calculation, but before being sent to the graveyard, if it was destroyed by the battle, the flip monster's flip effect activates and resolves on the field if the timing is correct. During the damage step, after damage calculation, but before being sent to the graveyard, if it was destroyed by battle. So, yes. Slate Warrior's flip effect is ineffective, but its destruction effect is very effective. I think back in the day, flip effects would activate before the damage step, possibly, but here it does not work out. But it's still a decent trap. It's still a decent set trap monster, but set trap monsters don't really have much relevance these days outside of archetypes like Ghost Trick. So, Flying Kamakiri number 1. I believe that this one was the standard attack boost. Nope, it's a card search. Floater. Recruiter, I think. What's it called? Destroyed by battle, special summon a wind attribute monster with 1500 less attack in face-up attack position. There are a few. Let me double check. Maybe not Slate Warrior, but there are quite a few options. There are a few options for Flying Kamakiri, and there's 2 of them, so that works out. Harpy Lady Sisters. Cannot be normal summoned or set. Must be special summoned with Elegant Egotist. Since they're a set, and since it requires it, I think I'll overview both of the cards. Harpy Lady Sisters and Elegant Egotist, both at 2. Elegant Egotist. If Harpy Lady is on the field, special summon a Harpy Lady or Harpy Lady Sisters from the hand or deck. So, Harpy Lady Sisters is just a beat stick with average defense, below average attack for its level, but standard-ish attack for the time. It's iffy in use. Like, on paper, it's another monster, but in practice, Harpy Lady Sisters will more often than not become a dead draw, as you can't actually normal summon it outright, and it has to be special summoned with Elegant Egotist first before you can do anything else. But Elegant Egotist in the Harpy Lady archetype actually has good use for it. You can special summon another Harpy Lady from the deck. So, I wonder if this got limited or anything. Nope, unlimited. But I'm curious to see if this got any points to it, because this is really a good card for the Harpy Ladies. Let's see. So, Harpy Lady Sisters. At 2. And Elegant Egotist. No points. So, get a Harpy Lady deck and go crazy. Alright. First quarter's done. Time for another bite. So far, we haven't really seen much of the strategy outside of the support and a side strat and a subpar side strategy, but we might get into more of it here. Let's see, Bladefly, I believe, is the standard attribute booster. Yes. Increase the attack of all wind monsters, decrease the attack of all earth monsters. Standard fare. And Bladefly and all the others have gotten their own link monsters, which doesn't apply here. Is there a space? Nope, good. Bladefly. There we go. See, Birdface. I believe this one's a Harpy Lady support card. When this card is destroyed by balance of the graveyard, you can add a Harpy Lady from your deck to your hand. This kind of effect I would find to be much less powerful than cards like Kamakiri #1 or Mother Grizzly, but it can still see a use. I don't know. It would require testing. That's what I'll say. It would require testing. Birdface, destroyed by battle. There are a whole bunch of other ways to get rid of a monster nowadays, but I don't know. Here. Sylphid. This is the one that you have to... Yes. You must remove from play a wind monster from the graveyard to special summon this. These have been decent in a tribute strategy by virtue of you getting an extra monster right off without having to use your normal summon. Let's see. When destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, your opponent discards a random card from your hand. It's not necessarily a bad effect, but I think this is the worst effect I've seen out of the special summon by banishing monsters. But it's not necessarily a bad one because getting rid of hand advantage can be powerful. But in this game, there are other things that should be focused on, as there aren't a lot of options to focus on getting rid of hand advantage these days. Besides, seems getting rid of hand advantage is seen as a no-no. I mean, look at the Legacy of Yadagaras. Not the trap card, but what's happened. Let's see now. All right, and then we have Lady Ninja Yae. The only reason, and I believe that the only reason this card is in the deck is because it's a wind attribute monster that gets rid of spells and traps on the field and is a ninja. And that's going to come into play in a second here, once we go into traps and such. It has a decent effect, but it doesn't really... It's not really a good starter, nor is it an extender. It's more of a win more or a supporter. So it could be useful in a slower state, but at the moment, its only virtue is that it's a ninja, and certain cards in this deck require a ninja to use. We'll go into those in a bit. Alright, Rock from the Valley of Haze. I remember this one pretty fondly. Yes. A level 6, 2400 attack and 1400 defense. A stable stat line, for lack of a better word. When sent directly from your hand to the graveyard, add this card to the deck and shuffle it. So there are certain... So yeah, it seems there are certain cards that require discarding wind monsters or discarding in general. And Rock from the Valley of Haze can facilitate that. You won't lose it as badly, but it returns to the deck, which means you won't get it back as quickly, and 2, it shuffles the deck, and so it would mess up any strategies from effects that would top deck cards. I'm not sure. Like, I remember this one fondly, as it's a decent attacker, but I will give it a... I haven't been using a ranking, but I'll say as grade school C. Like, it's not bad. It's not good, but it's not bad. It's sort of in the middle. If someone can see a use for this, you're more power to you. Rock. It's also had gotten... One second. Add a space. I believe it had gotten a smaller version of it last I checked. What's it called? Baby Rock from the Valley of Haze? Or is it Mist Valley Rock, maybe? Let's see, where are we at now? Okay. And now we're on to the notorious Harpy Ladies. Let's go through these all at once, shall we? Alright. So, all of these numbered Harpy Ladies all have the condition that their name is always treated as Harpy Lady. This has caused a bit of a rule confusion, and there are a few more cards similar to this. While each one of these are distinct, they are all the card Harpy Lady, which means if you have a Harpy Lady 1, you can't have 3 Harpy Lady 2s, you can only add 2 more Harpy Lady 2s. This was something that confused me back in the day, but it's confusing, but I understand it. So yes, Harpy Ladies 1, 2, and 3. Let's go over their distinct effects now. Harpy Lady 1 is a wind booster. So with the self-given boost, it would be a 1600 attack monster with 1400 defense. Lackluster, but it boosts all other wind monsters, though the boost itself isn't necessarily spectacular. Harpy Lady 2. The effects of flip monsters are negated. Let's see. The effects of flip monsters this card destroys by battle are negated. But with its stat line, it's not really going to be defeating any monsters, so another underwhelming card. Harpy Lady 3. An opponent's monster that battles this card cannot declare an attack during your opponent's next 2 turns. This one has more utility to it. Of the 3, I would sort of prefer this one. But as I said, there are other ways of destroying a monster or getting rid of a monster outside of outright battling it. But it's a decent decent monster trap. So yes, I remember favoring this one aside. Like, I remember favoring this one and Harpy Lady 1. And I've been told, let's see, later on the line I was explained to me that the maximum card limit was 60 and that these 3 Harpy Ladies are all the same card. So, Harpy Lady 1, 2, and 3. Now then, see, 2 more monsters to look into. And I believe they're both Harpy related. Nope, let's see, this guy. Let's see. Level 6 monster, 2300 attack, 1400 defense. If you tribute summon this card by tributing a wind monster, return all spells and traps on the field to the owner's hands. Pretty powerful effect for a lackluster stat line. I don't know. It could see play. If someone can think of a clever way to continue with Swift Birdman Joe. And Giant Trinade is pretty much out of the picture. It has a big stat line. I'll have to look into that. But we'll see that in a second. I'm pretty sure Giant Trinade, or is it just Heavy Storm? I'll have to look into Giant Trinade, how much points it has. But Swift Birdman Joe, lackluster in fighting, but a decent effect. Man. Here we go. Alright. And we're at the halfway mark, but I'm going to review the next monster before moving on. Oh. Thingamagigama. Here we go. Harpy's Pet Baby Dragon. A nerfed version of the Harpy's Pet Dragon that I'm guessing people would have clamored for after this deck's release. They were all, well, we can't just outright give them Harpy's Pet Dragon. Well, we gotta give them something for the Harpy ladies. Let's make a baby version of it. I'm pretty sure that's the thought process for it. So, gains effects based on the number of Harpy monsters you control. That doesn't include Harpy's Pet Baby Dragon. One or more. Your opponent cannot target Harpy monsters you control for attacks except for Harpy's Pet Baby Dragon. Two or more. The original attack and defense of this card is doubled. So it will become a level 4 monster with 2400 attack. But this is possibly a difficult field to pull off. If it's 3 or more, once per turn, you can target a card your opponent controls and destroy it. Once again, a difficult field to pull off. But if you can pull it off, pretty decent effects, but not really. In fact, I need to have a look and see what the original Harpy's Pet Dragon is. Let's see. Harpy's Pet Dragon. Ah, okay. So let's have a look. Gains 300 attack and defense for each Harpy lady on the field. And it is a level 7. Baseline is 2000 attack. I take it back. By a small margin, I'd say the Pet Baby Dragon wins it here. Although they retrained Harpy's Pet Dragon, so let's sell it once and for all. Fearsome. Wait. Now there's a bunch of them, aren't there? Let's have a look. I'm getting into a tangent here, though. So, yeah. Pet Phantasmal and Pet Dragon retrained Fearsome Fire Blast. But for the sake of the argument presented, the Pet Dragon doesn't really match up as well to the Pet Baby Dragon. Both do require a lot of setup to make use of their effects. But with Pet Baby Dragon, at the very least, you don't have to tribute 2 monsters to summon it. Let's see here. Alright. Halfway. Now we take a bite. So, they're keeping the monster ratio good. Because I still remember the first few where there's not enough monsters to satisfy the strategy. But now, we've averaged out between monsters and not monsters. So now, outside of Elegant Egotist, we're going to go into the spells. Let's see. Right off the bat, I see one possible ender. But we'll see how it all goes. Starting with Well, let's start with the cards I already went over, shall we? I believe I already went over Nobleman of Crossout. So Mystical Space Typhoon and Nobleman of Crossout. Destroy spells. That is important to this deck. Nobleman of Crossout. Oh, yeah. Nobleman of Crossout prevents... Actually, have I gone over this card? I'll go over it here. But yeah, Mystical Space Typhoon. Destroy spells. Important to the deck. Reload. Why reload as opposed to Magical Mount? The last deck did good with that one, but they've gone back to reload. I guess they wanted to reduce the power. I'm pretty sure I haven't gone over Lightning Vortex, but I might not have to. Lightning Vortex, you discard a card, you destroy all face-up monsters on your opponent's side of the field. Let me double check. Is it all face-up monsters? Nope. Oh yeah. All face-up monsters your opponent controls. An average board wipe for monsters. Card destruction. A simple effect. Both players discard their entire hand, then draw the same number of cards they discarded. A good disturbance strategy, and effective in a deck that wants you to discard cards. But in practice, it's very difficult to actually pull off unless you're specifically holding cards that want to be discarded, such as Fabled or, well, yeah, Fabled, because I was thinking Dark World, but they actually want your opponent to discard them. So yes. Oh, and we already got our first opponent. We already got our first point at her. I get the feeling that when we reach Heavy Storm, it's going to be game over. We'll see. But yeah, 40 points, rightly so. As I said, there are a few monsters that want to be discarded, or even, yeah, that want to be discarded. Though, who knows? Maybe in the future they'll lessen the point value of card destruction, because I don't see a lot of strategies utilizing this to the fullest. Let's see here. Nobleman of Crossout. Let's see. This card. Target a face-down monster on the field. Destroy it. Then, let's see. Destroy and banish it. Then, if it was a flip effect monster, each player reveals their main deck and banishes all cards with the same name. So yes, this card is the bane of flip effect monsters. But it doesn't come up that often. So, Heavy Storm destroys all spells and traps on the field. And it is currently forbidden. So, let's see how many points are assigned to it. Do we still have a run? Huh. I guess not. I guess we still have a run. It's got 10 points to it. Surprising. It's banned in the TCG, but it's not. It's somewhat limited in the game, in Genesys. I guess it's a different ball game. Obviously, it's like yeah, because in a game where everything is allowed, technically, you would definitely want a way to break the board more often. Yes. Stuff to think about. So, moving on. Let's see here. We've got reload. which is, you know, less useful than Magical Mallet, because you have to send your entire hand into the deck, then draw that many cards. This is a -1 for a hand shuffle, and even if you have cards that you wanted to keep, too bad. Like, if you're going to have reload, you might as well have Magical Mallet instead. Field spell for the deck. Harpy's Hunting Ground. Ooh, come on. Here we go. All winged beast monsters gain attack and defense. Dismissible. But if any Harpy or Harpy Lady Sisters is normal or special summoned, the person who conducted the summon targets a spell or trap on the field, and that player destroys that target. So, a good strategy for this, a good addition to the strategy of this deck. However, it's hard to implement, as in the entire deck, let me double check, it has to be Harpy Lady or Harpy Lady Sisters. So first of all, Harpy Lady Sisters requires Elegant Egotist. We've gone over that more often than not. This is a dead card. And because it has to be Harpy Lady, outside of Harpy Lady Sisters, there are only 3 other monsters in the entire deck. So, more often than not, you would only have at most 2 of those monsters in any given match. But if this strategy was implemented in a Harpy deck, that would be a different coat of paint. Triangle Ecstasy Spark. The Ojama Delta Hurricane of Harpy Ladies, if I'm not mistaken. Nope. This is a different card. Okay. Until the end of this turn, the attack of all Harpy Lady Sisters currently on the field becomes 2,700. Your opponent cannot activate any trap cards and negate all of your opponent's trap effects on the field. So, oh, but it's all Harpy Lady Sisters. Okay, so this card kind of upgrades Harpy Lady Sisters to a Garnet status. A card you don't want in your hand, but you would want in your deck. And I am enamored with this effect, actually. Like, no trap cards can be activated. Trap cards on the field are negated. And a decent stat line. Granted, it's not 3,000, but how many Enfields these days have a 3,000 each monster? And we're talking Genesys here, so this could see play. So yeah. Triangle Ecstasy Spark at 1. Alright. On to the home stretch. And we're going into trap cards now. So does that mean there's 10 trap cards in this deck? Interesting. Interesting. So far, we're seeing a small amount of support for Simwork strategy and a bit more support for the Harpy Lady strategy, but it's not doing well for the Harpy Lady. Anyways, moving on. We now have Hysteric Party. Another Harpy Lady support card. This is like, if I recall, yes. This is like Call of the Haunted, but on, I don't even want to say it. Fine, I'll say it. It's Call of the Haunted on crack. Activate this card by discarding a card. Special summon as many copies of Harpy Lady as possible from the graveyard. When this face-up card leaves the field, destroy those monsters. I'm pretty sure, in fact, we'll have an example of what I'm thinking is the deal. Harpy Dancer. Haha. This card's name becomes Harpy Lady while on the field or in the graveyard. So yes, nowadays, this is an insane card, as the majority of the Harpy Lady support have the effect that doesn't change their name to Harpy Lady until it hits the graveyard or the field, which is good, because that way you're not stuck with just, like, it doesn't change its name until it hits the field or graveyard, which means in the deck, it's a distinct name, which helps with the deck building a lot. So I'm glad they, as soon as I saw how the new Harpy support worked, I was glad that they learned their lesson about the Harpy Ladies 1, 2, and 3. And the card itself is crazy. As I said, it's Call of the Haunted on crack. Speaking of, Call of the Haunted's here too. So why don't we just put both here? Aqua Chorus. I don't recall this one being that much of a card. Let's see if there are monsters with the same name on the field. Increase the attack and defense of those monsters with the same name by 500. So yes, a lackluster effect for a condition that you're not really going to get that often. Because, like, for this example, this one deck only has 3 monsters that have the same name. And if you have 3 monsters in a 40 card deck, the most you're going to get is 2 of those monsters. Like, I'm talking naturally here. Now, it'd be a different thing if there were searchers, which I guess Kamakiri is in here, and Birdman. So, but this really isn't worth it. I would think most would have swapped this out for something else. Possibly another Hysteric Party, or even a Call of the Haunted. Dust Tornado. I actually think I already went over this one. It's an MST that's slower and has an alternate effect to it that doesn't make sense. Like, could someone explain to me how one uses Dust Tornado's other effect that lets you set a card from your hand? Because, you can't activate a trap or quick play spell the turn it's been set. So it doesn't really make sense to me for Dust Tornado to do this. And I'm pretty sure in Battle City rules, the turn you set a card, it can't be activated. Unless I missed my mark on that one, I'll have to look into it. But Dust Tornadoes could only possibly be fully used in Battle City rules, if that's the case. Magic Jammer. I believe this is discard a card to negate the activation of a spell. Yes. There are better options these days, but back in the day, this would be your way to negate a spell card, but they would likely have gotten rid of it in exchange for a different card. In fact, I remember going over a card that was probably better than this, as it forces your opponent to discard a card in order to stop the negation. Dark Coffin. When this face-down card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, your opponent selects and executes one of the following effects. Discard a random card in their hand, or select a monster on their side of the field and destroy it. This is one of those cards that you want to destroy. Similar to Statue of the Wicked. But it has no effect on its own. So it's a wonky card to use. If there is a good way to use it, it would require playtesting. Reckless Greed. Right, yes, the Reckless Greed, the draw card. Sakuretsu Armor. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, destroy a monster on the field. If I'm not mistaken. Monster declares an attack, target the attacking monster, destroy the target. Yep. Decent monster elimination. Mirror Force is stronger, but I think by the time this deck was released, it's become one of those limited staples. However, Mirror Force is much less powerful these days. Last two cards to go over. Now, here's a card that I mentioned earlier when I was going over Lady Ninja Yae. There is only one ninja in the entire deck. So why is this in here? Oh, wrong thing. Like, why are these two in here? Add at least 2 more ninjas to this deck, and you might have a use for this. Activate this card by tributing a ninja monster. Special summon a beast, winged beast, or insect monster from the hand or deck whose level is less than or equal to the level of the tributed monster had on the field, +3. When this card leaves the field, destroy that monster. I get why it's in here. It's a strategy to bring out some other winged beast monster, maybe Sonic Joe, I think he was called. But you're not getting this off with this specific deck recipe. One card in the deck, you're only going to see that every other game. At least add one more monster, then you at least see it once per game. But no, it's just one monster for this one trap. Looking back on it baffles me why this was a thing. Final trap. Simple and effective with this deck, sort of. Like, you could probably special summon a winged beast type monster for this, and you won't lose that much. Not that effective nowadays, I don't think. Icarus attack. Tribute a winged beast type monster, then target 2 cards in the field, destroy them. Much more effective back in the day than it is now. But, you know, it still has its use, I would think. And that's the deck. And much like its total points, it is an average deck. But it's a safe statement that this deck is Genesys friendly. It is a middling deck, but it is Genesys friendly, and it does require work. I think the point of these structured decks in the past is for you to learn the basics and get an understanding of what cards need to be replaced and what you should add. Possibly. So yes, It's average, and it needs a lot of work, and it is Genesys friendly. Thank you for watching. Be sure to tune in next week, where I go over the next release, Dinosaurs Rage. Till then, Controlled Chaos, signing out.